The mist still clung to their clothes from the ink portal, steam curling in heavy sheets across a half-built sea. Lava hissed where it met the newborn waves, black stone crackling as it cooled under the endless waterfall. It was the same campsite where their journey began, though now patched with glowing jellyfolk rings, trade gates tethering even this raw edge of the mirror realm to the city's reach. Aunt Glad hunched over her waterproof ledger, scribbling about portal chemistry while the snake coiled tighter at her leg. Riot tugged at his damp bathrobe, still prickling from the memory of turning eel, squid, and frog in front of a roaring arena. Kalm leaned against her three-headed axe, fingers itching to try the ridiculous yo-yo attachment she'd spotted in the neon shop they'd just passed. From far behind, Grandpa Fury's voice still echoed faintly through the fading portal, his buffet declaration rolling across the mist like thunder. "Forever buffet!" The family exchanged looks. Only he could turn Jellyfolk nightlife into a territorial claim. Kalm scanned the fog and said flatly, "Feels too quiet. That usually means something big is about to crash through." Riot groaned, tugging his robe tighter. "Please don't say that out loud. You're cursed enough already." He sniffed once, wrinkling his nose. "Smells like oil smog and trouble." Kalm only smiled, adjusting her grip on the axe. "Good. I was getting bored." The air shifted. Not just mist now, but shimmer. A strange glow arced through the haze, bending light as if someone had dragged a brush of color across the clouds. Aunt Glad lifted her binoculars. The snake tightened further, sensing the pulse before the humans did. Her voice came dry, unimpressed. "Well, you don't see that every day." Across the horizon, a tree 1,000 meters tall drifted into view. Its trunk gleamed with bronze plates and turning gears, carried aloft not by engines but by thousands of birds with rainbow wings. Their feathers flashed prism bright, spraying mist that condensed into spirals of fresh water before raining into the new canals below. Glad muttered under her breath more to her notes than to anyone else. Powerful birds, rainbow wings, water gifts. No wonder they've chosen this city. The jellyfolk always did keep the best waterways. The family stood together, watching as the shadow of the moving forest swallowed rooftops and raw stone alike. From the branches, vines of light unfurled downward, and along them came figures descending with practiced grace. They were deliberate. They were not here by chance. And with them, the villain had arrived. The ambassadors of the tree had arrived. First came a cyborg chameleon, its scales flickering through neon camouflage, one robotic eye whirring with a constant zoom click. Next glided a flying squirrel, part fur and part metal plating, its body snapping to a stone arch with a magnetic cling. Then padded forward a leopard, sleek and silver-muscled, its whiskers tipped with lenses that refracted light like scattered prisms. They moved as one, not quite animal, not fully machine, something in between. The leopard spoke first, voice calm but heavy with authority. "Heroes of this branch, your duties are relieved. The tree has taken root here. We will guard the city from this point forward." Grandpa Fury bristled, his fists clenched until his knuckles shimmered with that old mirror fire. Kalm shifted uneasily at his side. Riot spat in disbelief. "Relieved of duty?" Fury growled. "That's crazy talk. We're the heroes here." The ambassadors answered not with reason but with laughter, mocking, mechanical echoes that rang through the mist. "You," the squirrel chittered, its voice half metallic, half living. "You are not ambassadors of heroes. You are the heroes themselves." The emissary circled them, speaking like a cruel ledger being read aloud. An old man, arms tainted by the mirror realm. A temper tantrum teen, all shout and no shield. A boy untouched by woman or battle in equal measure. Their laughter was sharp, brittle, rolling over Fury and the siblings like hail against armor. But when their gaze shifted toward Aunt Glad, the tone faltered. The pause stretched long enough for the mist to prickle with tension. "Though we admit," one voice lowered carefully, "those two are formidable." All eyes turned to Glad, and the serpent coiled at her side. Nada, smaller now, still wrapped most of her body, its head perched on her shoulder. The serpent's tongue flicked, scales glinting like tempered glass. An emissary unfurled a scroll sealed in bronze, pressed with the sigil of the high branches. "We have an invitation for your services. Glad and Nada are already known among us. Your names carry weight. Your knowledge, science, technology, analysis is sought throughout the tree. Even here, your reputation precedes you." The parchment glowed faintly in the stormlight as the writ was revealed. This is official. Your place among the protectors is guaranteed, should you accept it. The weight of the moment pressed on all of them. Glad's sharp eyes narrowed, unreadable in the half-light. Nada gave a slow, sinuous hiss, as though the serpent itself had the right to answer. At last, Glad gave a single pat to the serpent's head. Nada settled back down against her shoulder and in its own defiance, drifted into a lazy nap. And then, just as quickly, the emissary's tone shifted back. Their laughter cracked like a whip, harsher than before. As for these three, the sneer was audible, dripping contempt. The old one who creaks, the tantrum teen, the untouched boy, their worth is a joke. The sound of it circled them, louder now, needling like steel on bone. Fury's jaw twitched, muscles burning beneath his beard. Riot stepped forward, sparks alive in his eyes. "Then fight us," he snapped. "See what happens." But the leopard only smiled, the gleam of metallic teeth cutting through the mist. Its tone cooled, almost ceremonial. "We are only representatives. You wouldn't fight us unless you reached the high branches themselves." From the tree's shadow, a vine unfurled. Its surface glowed with inscriptions older than the stones beneath their feet. "If you truly wish to prove your worth, if you demand to keep the title of protector, then climb. The gauntlet awaits, root to crown. No one here wants to be guarded by something weaker than themselves." The words hung heavy, pressing on the family as the canals rippled beneath rainbow wings. The roots stretched before them, a challenge written in bronze and shadow. Aunt Glad's voice cut through with dry precision. "All right, then. You three, enjoy the gauntlet. Nada and I will be off studying whatever this cyborg tree dragged in with it," she added, almost as an afterthought. "Singularity, humph." The roots were not still. They twitched, restless, alive, burrowing deeper with every heartbeat. The sound reached them first, a high-pitched whine that set their teeth on edge. Grandpa Fury grumbled. "I hate dentists." Kalm shot back. "It's not their fault you don't brush your teeth." Riot smirked. "I think he's got dentures anyway." But his joke was sliced short by the shriek of drills breaking through stone. Out from the roots they came, blind, snub-bodied moles with jagged drill-bit snouts. Their claws scraped sparks with every movement, steel grinding against rock as they surfaced in swarms. They didn't come one by one. They came in swarms. The drill moles tunneled beneath the cobbles and burst upward in volleys, blind snouts snapping, claws sparking as they clawed at stone. The family was forced into a circle, turning back to back, every angle under siege. You couldn't kill one and think it was over. Every strike had to fold into the next. Endurance, rhythm, coordination. That was the only way forward. Grandpa Fury didn't bother with rhythm. He caught the first mole by the throat, ripped its head free, and hurled it into another. The drills still whirred in his fists, gnashing like mad tools. He grunted, slammed them down over his knuckles, and grinned. From that moment on, Fury wasn't just punching, he was boring through them. Fists turned into twin iron gauntlets that punched swarms back into the dirt with their own weapons. Kalm was pure movement. She spun the three-headed weapon as if each face had its own hunger. The broad grin smashed one flat. The long nose punched clean through three in a row. The axe hair swept wide, carving bodies in halves that smoked where metal met stone. At one point, she planted her feet and spun on her heels. A circle of death carved just at the edge of reach, the storm of moles shredding wherever the weapon passed. "Hey!" Riot called between strikes, armor glowing with every dodge. "You seriously bought that yo-yo attachment for a three-headed hammer pickaxe?" Kalm smirked, snapped the cord, and the weapon shot out, drilled through a cluster, then snapped back into her palms. Worth every coin. "Ridiculous," Riot muttered, but his blade rhythm never broke. Dodge, slice, hop, dodge. His glow steady, his cuts precise. The repetition made him look like part of the swarm's rhythm itself, slicing the beat apart every time it closed. For a moment they bought themselves space. The tide broke open, long enough for them to glimpse where it all came from. Ahead, buried into the roots like a festering wound, was the factory. Tubes dangled into the earth, pumping life into new moles, feeding the endless tide. Each line pulsed like an umbilical cord, dragging fuel and fire down into the swarm. The family pushed forward, hacking their way through, until the tubes began to retract. Something bigger was waking. The ground heaved under their feet. The roots split, and from the rupture rose a giant mole rat, its entire face one massive spinning drill. Hatch doors lined its torso, clanging open one after another. New moles dropped out like soldiers shaken loose from a war chest, staggering at first, then streaming in torrents. The air filled with sparks, claws, shrieks. The beast raised its head, tearing free of the tubes, and the sound it made wasn't just heard. It was felt. A scream like a freight train slamming its brakes, metal grinding into metal, the whine drilling down through marrow. The gauntlet had found its first boss. The face drill tilted skyward. It swung left, then right, and with each movement it spat worms into the air, long, twisting things armored in razor scales. They spun with drills at both ends, whining like sirens, before plunging into the dirt and bursting up again like fish leaping from a poisoned pond. Kalm was first to meet them, swinging the axe head of her weapon straight down. The blade bit through one cleanly, only to find she'd made two. Both halves wriggled, razor edges screaming, before drilling back into the ground. Fury grinned, fists still wrapped in stolen mole drills. Nice. A multiplying horde. I like it. Riot did not. He staggered back, cutting, slicing, cursing. He was certain he'd lopped the head off the same worm 5 times, and maybe a half, before it finally stopped moving. His armor's glow sputtered with every strike, every near miss, and his voice cracked into a wail that cut through the chaos. The battlefield transformed. The flat, cobbled ground became a churn of ridges and pits, every patch of soil a potential launch point. Drills screamed beneath their boots, a sound so constant and piercing it could have doubled as a dentist's orchestra. Riot screamed right along with it. I hate this! His shout pitched high, almost too perfect, like a bad parody of himself. Kalm laughed even as she hacked a worm into halves, then halves again, until the pieces scattered like shrapnel. Come on, bro. Those are just their scouts. How are we going to fight our way through this mess? She chopped one again with the axe head, split it in 1 1/2, and watched both twitching bodies zip away underground. Her frustration boiled over. So how many times can you cut a worm in half and it still lives again? This time she switched tactics, brought the hammer face down in a brutal smash. One strike, then another, then a third. Finally the worm collapsed into still metal shards. She muttered, breath sharp. Better than slicing. Crushing wins. The giant mole stopped moving. Stillness rolled across its hulking body. Then, with a hiss of hydraulics, a device pushed out from its forehead. Something like a scanner, circular, gleaming. It pulsed and shone a greenish-black grid across the battlefield. At first, the grid moved slowly, sweeping side to side, then faster and faster. Until the light was so bright, it hurt to look directly into it. The worms fell silent. One by one, they vanished beneath the earth, retreating from the field as though the grid itself commanded them. The quiet that followed was worse than the fight. The green light strobed across the battlefield, flashing in sharp intervals that bent vision into fragments. Everything came at them in sections. Half a worm here, a flash of claw there, reality sliced up and reassembled by the scanner's beat. Riot raised his foot slowly, suspicious of every ridge. They know, he muttered, half a laugh caught in his throat. He held his leg in the air too long, as if stalling could fool them. The instant his boot kissed the dirt, the ground exploded upward, another drill worm snapping like a sprung trap. And then they realized, it wasn't just the step that triggered them. The worms felt everything. The lift of a heel, the shift of weight, even the breath of motion through soil. Dodging one meant 3 more erupted to meet you, each striking in rhythm, linked like drummers on the same song. The mother drill tilted lower, pouring the green strobe directly on them. The light flashed slow, then faster, then near blinding, and for a heartbeat their strikes wavered. Blades missed by inches, axes glanced off armor. Vision stuttered. What should have been chaos became something else entirely. A dance. The gauntlet had turned into choreography, rhythm bending them into its beat. Riot and Kalm adapted first, blades and hammer flashing in sync with the tempo. They found the trick. The only way to kill a worm was precision. Slice just beneath the spinning drill. Hook. Twist hard. The metal cracked under torque, the worm recoiling in pain. If they were fast enough, they could catch its tail before it vanished, swing it like a flailing club, and hurl it skyward. Mid-air, they'd strike the opposite drill, breaking it apart before it ever hit the ground again. And all this while dodging the next eruption. Fury bellowed between punches. What in the EDM festival is this? Feels like I'm fighting inside a Pink Floyd laser show. Riot barked back, panting. Grandpa, you were stuck in the mirror realm. How would you even know about Pink Floyd? All I know, Fury grunted, wrenching a worm's drill free and slamming it like a hammer, is all this twisting. I'm scared my back's going to crack. We're all seeing the same thing, right? Kalm spun her weapon in rhythm, her strikes coming sharp with each pulse. It's just making a beat, she said flatly, her breath punctuating the strobe. Humph, 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 about 120 BPM. Another swing, another worm crushed. Humph, humph. For a moment, it wasn't chaos. It was a rave of violence, their fight choreographed by the strobing green light. The rhythm turned ritual. The siblings moved like they were circling a bonfire, two spirals of death cutting the worms down in arcs and bursts. Kalm's steps snapped sharp, acrobatic. Every leap a spin, every swing of her three-headed weapon, a dancer's twirl that just happened to end in dismemberment. Riot was heavier, grounded, brute force over flourish, but even his stomps and slashes found the beat. Together, they looked like a limbo-capoeira hybrid, a wild new martial art nobody had ever named, but everyone could somehow understand. They shouted to each other mid-fight, tossing worms into the air. Kalm whipped one skyward with her axe. Riot sliced it down like it was a baton past mid-choreography. The rhythm was survival, but it was also performance. Kalm kept time under her breath. Humph, humph, her voice the metronome that stitched the chaos together. Grandpa Fury was another matter. With drills strapped to his fists, he lumbered through the worms like an old champion pounding a heavy bag. Each jab cracked into a worm mid-lunge, drills shrieking against the mirrored fire of his arms. His dodges looked reckless, his uppercuts sloppy, his spinning kicks pointless, until the clang of torn steel proved every move had landed. At one point, he locked two worms in his grip and forced their drills against each other, the sparks spitting like a forge fire. "You boys ever seen a grinder chew itself to death?" he barked, before tossing the twisted remains aside. Then came the flourish. He tossed one gauntlet skyward, caught it again, and hurled the mirrored drill off his other hand into the swarm. The weapon skewered 4 worms in a row, pinning them to the stone. Fury snatched the other drill back out of the air, slammed it down, and ground all 4 into sparks like a living garbage disposal. He shook the shards free, strapped the drills back into place, and started shadowboxing again as if nothing happened. Kalm laughed, her weapon spinning in clean, deadly circles. "You call that a dance?" "Girl?" Fury shot back, pounding another worm flat. "This is soul music." Together, the three carved their way forward, every strike a rhythm, every dodge a beat. And when the worms finally fell back, they found themselves standing on solid ground again. The battlefield stretched open before them. Beyond the worms came something slower, heavier, and far more unnerving. A writhing mass of chrome and flesh slithered out from the roots, its skin bubbling with static as dozens of slug heads rose, sank, and rose again. Wherever it oozed, the ground hissed, leaving behind a slick that spread like a creeping flood. Even the smallest touch of it sent jolts up the limbs, nerves twitching toward paralysis. Kalm wrinkled her nose. "That's not just a blob. That's kinda a blob." Fury's eyes lit up with reckless delight. "Kinda awesome. Hope there's a swamp thing next." Kalm groaned. "Kinda old." Riot, of course, got too close. "I'm just testing the— oh, no. The blob clutched him in a sudden pull, and within seconds he was half consumed, thrashing, his face turning purple as the slime coated him from shoulders to boots. "Can you two stop arguing and get me out of this thing?" By the time they yanked him free, Riot stood dripping, his armor slick with slime and his voice strained. "Great. Now I'm the hero with a purple face and a slime suit. Perfect." The three shifted into a triangle, circling the blob with careful steps. Each move forced the creature into constant reshaping. Dozens of slug heads sprouted, struck, and folded back into the mass. At times it sprawled across half the battlefield, smothering everything in its reach. At times it compressed, pulling tight, leaving sudden gaps that lured them forward only to snap shut before anyone could exploit them. Their movements slowed into a strange rhythm. Fury, Riot, and Kalm rotated positions, trading angles, testing patterns, shifting like dancers in a circle none of them wanted to admit they'd joined. The blob drifted like a tide, and slowly, too slowly, they found themselves edging toward its far side. Kalm muttered as she sidestepped, her weapon slicing the air just far enough to warn a slughead back down. You know, Grandpa, we don't really need him to be a hero. You, me, and Aunt Glad could handle this. Fury huffed, smashing another slug mouth shut with a drill gauntlet. Yeah, and how does it make the family look if we don't have the family armor in the mix? Kalm just sighed, her strikes keeping time with her breath, her circle steps dragging Riot along with them. Together they worked the slow pattern, a choreography of patience, until at last all three stood behind the writhing mass. The mother cyborg mole rat rose from the churned battlefield, a grotesque frame towering above the ruins of its children. Its drill face was wide enough to swallow a horse, spinning with a scream that tore the air raw. Hatch doors along its belly clanged open and shut, spitting smaller moles onto the stone like nothing had been learned, the swarm refusing to end. When it reared back, the sound sharpened into a keening shriek. From the drill itself, it spat a gearworm, a twisting length of steel that shot across the field like a spear. The green strobing scanner locked tighter, no longer sweeping wide, but narrowing into a harsh, focused beam that followed their every move. Kalm only muttered, keeping the beat under her breath. She skipped across the battlefield like she was hopping through music, the rhythm carrying her through each dodge. The only saving grace was its slowness. Every step of the beast was a labor. It lifted a front leg with agonizing patience, planted it with a thud, then shifted the weight to the back, crawling forward like a collapsing tower. The siblings kept to its flank, slipping to its rear, climbing onto the plated shell to strike from above. But progress was punishing. Each gash they carved closed almost immediately, cables snapping back like tendons, chrome knitting itself across new wounds. It wasn't just alive, it was repairing, rewriting its body with every hit. Then came a new sound, a beeping. The giant lurched, slowing, almost still. Panels opened across its hide, red lights flaring in dozens of sockets. The pulse quickened, matching a heartbeat, then racing beyond it. The three heroes leapt back in unison, weapons raised, breath sharp in their throats. Kalm broke the silence first, her voice flat but tight. Self-destruct, Fury grinned, drill gauntlets still sparking. I respect that style, no stalemates. Win, or I'm taking you with me. The beeping built into a scream. The mother's drill whirled faster than they'd ever seen, blurring, howling. For a moment it looked ready to tear the world apart. Then it plunged. With one violent lunge, the drill nose smashed downward, the creature's entire mass folding into the earth. The hatches sealed as it sank. The red lights dimmed, one by one. The ground shivered, smoothed, and went still. Silence. No new moles. No beeping. Just the heavy hush of roots returning to their breathless, waiting stillness. Riot let the words slip out with a sigh. So that's it for the ground level. But none of them lowered their guard. Thick carpets of glowing moss spreading like quilts across the ground, each breath of wind lifting drowsy spores and rolling clouds. Step too heavy and parasitic vines snapped awake, coiling like living ropes. Between the patches, slug slicks slithered past, rivers of neon oil that hissed wherever they touched stone. Riot stumbled and went down hard into a cushion of moss. A plume of spores hissed up around his face. His body locked before he could even curse. Paralyzed, eyes wide, breath shallow. Aunt Glad already had a field lab going beside a small fire. Nada draped herself around the flames like a satisfied cat while glass tubes simmered at staggered heights. Glad didn't bother to look up from her notes until the exact second she needed to. Then she strode over and spritzed Riot with something sharp and bitter. He coughed, twitched, and jolted back to life, then blinked as his hair shot skyward, settling into a 2-foot green mohawk. Kalm smirked. Nice upgrade. That hair would have been perfect for the last battle. Aunt Glad made a neat checkmark on her page. Side effects, increased rebelliousness, acceptable. Riot scowled, then caught his reflection in a slick of slime and couldn't quite hide the grin. Feels on brand. Paths marked, Glad added, tossing a metal pellet that pinged off a stone and glowed faintly. A dotted trail of similar markers flickered ahead, like giant hopscotch squares through the minefield of moss and vines. The three fell in line, tiptoeing square to square, while Glad returned to her burners, muttering, Batch 2 needs less terpene. At the base of the tree, the moss thinned, but the ground started to breathe. Roots lifted and lowered like mechanical tendons, reaching in slow, grasping arcs. When one touched an arm or ankle, it tightened like a steel trap. The trick proved backward to instinct. The stiller you went, the sooner it let go. Struggle, and you stayed bound. It turned the approach into slow-motion twister. They crept forward in halting inches. Move the free parts, freeze, wait. Breathe shallow, wait. Slide a foot, freeze again. The trunk loomed larger with every patient pause, bronze plates vanishing upward into mist. Step by step, jerk by careful jerk, they inched toward the base of the mechanical tree. This gave way at last, and the family stood at the base of the colossal tree. Only, it wasn't a tree at all. Not bark, not wood, but a wall of living machinery. The trunk loomed like a fortress of gears, thousands layered on thousands, grinding in endless rhythm. From far away, it seemed like massive wheels meshed together. But up close, when Kalm leaned in, she realized the truth. The closer she looked, the smaller they became. A gear within another, each one spiraling down into smaller teeth still, all locking into a single endless pattern. They just keep getting smaller, she murmured, her eyes narrowing. No end to it, just smaller and smaller, all part of the bigger gear. The sound was deafening. 100 forges hammering at once, iron teeth gnashing. Sparks lit the air like fireflies, and the entire trunk seemed alive with hunger. Every foothold was treachery. What looked like a ledge sheared shut the moment a boot tested it. What looked like a handhold twisted with spikes the instant it was gripped. Riot was first to leap, landing on a spinning cog before it rolled him straight off the side. He scrambled, cursing, only saved by Kalm calling a sharp warning and vaulting past him. She caught a ledge herself, only to pull back hissing as thorns burst where her palm had touched. The climb became brutal fast. Riot and Grandpa Fury sweated sparks, fighting for every grip. Fury barked something about back-breaking nonsense, even as he hauled himself up a rotating chain like a man climbing a carnival ride. But Kalm had something else. She drew her weapon. The three-headed axe gleamed under the shower of sparks, ugly and magnificent. One head stretched long, nose sharp as a spear, a curled mustache etched across its grin. The second was broad and flat, with crooked teeth like a hammer daring the world to test its jaw. The last was wild. Long hair sharpened into a flowing blade, strands fused into an edge that seemed to point wherever it pleased. And the heads didn't always agree. They twitched, tugged, pointed in different directions like beasts fighting for control. But Kalm grinned at them, whispering through the clash of gears. Let's fly. The nose face locked forward, a chain coiling behind it. With a metallic snarl, it fired upward, biting deep into a gear far above. Kalm braced, lifted her boots, and let the weapon yank her into the climb. Half warrior, half acrobat, a trapeze star in the belly of a machine built to eat her alive. She kicked, free, and swung, the axe dragging her in a wide arc like a grappling hook. The chain reeled, pulled, then snapped loose as she tapped the release. She was already twisting, trapeze-borne, spinning around the handle. Show off, Riot muttered through clenched teeth, gripping a jagged tooth of bark metal that shocked his fingers raw. Shut up and watch, Kalm shot back, barely winded. The axe thrummed as she flicked on its electromagnetic pulse. Sparks danced along the chain, and suddenly the machine's cruelty bent to her rhythm. Gears that threatened to shear her brothers instead carried her like shifting stage platforms. She hopped from one to the next, dancing across moving death traps as if they'd been built just for her performance. When the tree adapted, spitting tar or snapping teeth shut to bite, she only spun harder, flinging herself upward with a grin, catching a higher cog at the last possible second. For her, it wasn't a climb. It was a performance. Soaring, dropping, vanishing into motion, always catching herself as if she'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Grandpa Fury bellowed from below, tearing at a gear with brute strength. You're not supposed to enjoy it. But she was. Fury snarled and drove his drill fist into the machine. Sparks lit the dark, the whole wall shuddering as gears ground to a brief halt. For a heartbeat, the kids scrambled higher on frozen machinery. But then came the punishment. The wall groaned, reversed itself, and began spinning in the opposite direction, like a giant had thrown a lever just to spite him. Fury slammed back into the trunk, spitting curses, even as the machine roared alive again. Every repeat was punished. Kalm's second try at the same ledge ended with her hand glued in black tar. Riot's second shoulder charge into a gear spat so much current into him he nearly blacked out. Even Fury's sheer force was matched by adaptation. Cogs locking tighter, chains whipping faster, countering his rhythm. The tree was learning them, testing them. Every movement cost more than the last. Answers him until they adapt. The bark mocked them with every shift. From its seams poured mildew, dust, and the sour reek of old curtains, a haunted retirement home stench that clung to their lungs. Fury spat and cursed, "That ain't me!" before wrenching another gear just to buy the kids a few seconds. Upward they climbed, forced into improvisation. Riot shouted cues like a drummer calling tempo, "Left! Leap! Drop!" Kalm echoed back, snapping her words into sharp signals, the two of them building a rhythm out of chaos. What had been trial and error became music, each warning a note, each answer a reply. Fury, though, still trusted muscle. He dug in, arms blazing with mirror fire, and shoved against the wall until the gears themselves buckled. For a moment, the impossible machine stuttered. The whole trunk groaned like a beast choking, and it felt as though the climb might finally end. But the bark adapted. It shifted patterns, teeth grinding into new alignments, never breaking stride. Fury roared and went further, timing his leap to wedge himself between two massive cogs, feet on one, fists locked on the other. With everything he had, he strained, tendons blazing, drill gauntlets screaming against the torque. The tower groaned. The gears slowed. Then, impossibly, they stopped. For one breath, everything held. Kalm spun on the handle of her axe, weightless in the silence, staring at still machinery. Then the bark flipped the game. With a shriek of metal, the entire trunk reversed direction. All the gears spun backward, faster, hungrier, the whole wall turning inside out. Fury cursed and vaulted free just before the two cogs he held slammed together like jaws. It wasn't something to break. It was something to outclimb. So they did. With sweat, rhythm, and raw stubbornness, the three carved their way upward through the frustration wall. Riot's family armor saved his limbs more than once, sparks flaring where he would have lost fingers or feet. Kalm soared, her axe chain biting higher holds and swinging her like a pendulum across gaps. Fury and Riot hopped, skipped, and heaved each other from cog to cog, working like stubborn athletes through a nightmare obstacle course. And somehow, impossibly, they rose. They hauled themselves past the last grinding cog, boots and palms smoking from the effort. Below, the gears never slowed, a grinding, endless chew at the trunk's own body. But here, above the wall of motion, everything shifted. The air thickened, the silence pressed in. What gears remained ticked only once every few seconds, each click so drawn out it felt like time itself was on a leash. Their own breath sounded wrong against it, too fast, too human, as though the tree was reminding them they didn't belong in its rhythm. Ahead, a hollow yawn open. Vast, black as pitch, wide enough to swallow a cathedral. No sound came from it. No draft of air, no machine groan, just void. Then, eyes. Two massive, mechanical yellow eyes blinked awake inside the dark. Who? The sound rolled out of the hole, deep and hollow as a pipe organ. A gust of wind followed, a wing beat so strong it rattled the cogs they clung to. The thing fell back into the tunnel, only its gaze left burning in the black. Who? Who dares to follow? Kalm wiped tar from her arm and squinted. Tell me we don't actually have to go in there. We could just keep climbing. Find another path. Riot shook his head, chest still heaving. Or go around. Whoever lives in there, I'd rather not meet it. Kalm shot him a flat look. Please tell me that wasn't a joke. Grandpa Fury spat and glared at the hollow like it had insulted him. And what? Leave our backs to it? Leave whoever in there to crawl out beneath us? No. Better to face what's hiding where we can see it. Kalm's scowl held, but she didn't argue. Riot groaned, half convinced, half dreading. The smell that drifted out, iron, feathers, dust older than the tree itself, made the choice for them anyway. They edged forward. The chamber swallowed them like a cathedral turned inside out. Shadows rose into ribs of the tree, curves bent by impossible geometry. And in the center, wings stirred. White feathers sparked static in the dark, a shape unfolded, towering plumage stitched with platinum frame. Diamond-hard eyes glittered with 1,000 facets, catching every spark of light and throwing it back as mirrors. With every wing beat, Static snapped, filling the air with the sharp scent of ozone. Then it spoke. Not words exactly, but sound. Hoo, hoo, woo. The vibrations bent inside their skulls, thought quivering like glass about to break. The owl's cry didn't just echo, it pressed outward, dragging their own minds into the open, forcing them to watch as their memories split apart and replayed. Who is better than you? Grandpa Fury blinked, only to find himself hunched at a school desk, too small for his frame, fists locked around a pencil that snapped each time he tried to write. Across the room, Aunt Glad was younger, sharper, her smile too bright, her joy cutting deeper than any insult. Fury's jaw clenched. This was the only test he'd never beaten, the only failure he could never muscle through. Who did you lose to? Kalm staggered. A flash of the ritual, the moment the armor had chosen Riot, not her. Her face burned again with rejection, the taste of iron on her tongue. She heard the cheer of the crowd, felt the silence she'd swallowed whole. It crushed her chest all over again. Who deserves it? The air warped. Riot was a child again, sparring with Kalm. Every match ended the same, her ferocity hammering him down, her wild willpower eclipsing his careful strikes. He rose again and again, but every loss cut deeper, until the owl's whisper wasn't just memory, it was a verdict. The hollow pulsed. Bronze feathers rattled like tin in a storm. Static poured from its wings and fell like white snow, coating the floor in a soft, sparking frost. Its eyes blinked like shutters of light, every flicker a new question. Then the voice rolled out, deep and dragging. Who could defeat yourself? The chamber bloomed with light. Their opponents stepped forward, not the owl, not shadows, but mirror twins, sharpened and monstrous. Fury's arrogance given flesh, eyes glowing with superiority. Riot's desperate hunger to win, each step forward a challenge. Kalm's ferocity unchecked, lips curled into a permanent snarl. Every flaw they carried was now a weapon staring them down. The reflections struck first, blows driven not by hate, but by the weight of what they'd been hiding. Each impact rang like a bell inside the hollow. The chorus of hoo echoed again, endless, layering on itself until the chamber shook. Riot cracked first. Trading strikes with his double, he shouted through gritted teeth, words spilling like blood from a wound. Fine. Maybe Kalm was always the better fighter. That's not why I was chosen. I was picked because I'd do whatever it took, because I'd stay level, even if it meant the ugly path. His reflection froze, then fractured, breaking into smoke and shards of static. The chorus repeated, hoo, but softer now, less accusation. Kalm's blade split her twin in a spray of sparks. Her chest heaved as she shouted back into the dark. And I admit it, Riot would always pick the right path, the clever path, even when I thought it was cowardly, cheap tricks, shortcuts. He knew the way forward better than me. Her twin shattered in kind, collapsing into static haze. The chorus softened further. Hoo, barely more than a whisper. Grandpa Fury just stood, arms folded. His reflection paced him, mirror fire gleaming, waiting. Finally, it lunged, only for Fury to snap his mirrored arms shut and pop the illusion like a soap bubble. Please, he muttered. I've known longer than you two have been alive that Aunt Glad's smarter than me. Those wounds scarred over decades ago. The hollow flickered. The owl's voice dragged another question through the chamber, slow and heavy. Why did you stay in the trap so long? Fury scratched his chin, unfazed. Well, I was hoping my tutor would show up. She was a hottie. Grandpa, Kalm groaned. You were a little kid. He just shrugged. And? The static fell silent. The illusions crumbled to dust. The owl's eyes blinked once, twice, then folded back into the dark. The chamber fell empty, except for their confessions echoing like ghosts off the walls. But as they turned to leave, the hollow itself shuddered. The silence thickened, thicker than before, until it pressed like weight on their chests. Sparks lanced down the ribs of the chamber, and the gears outside began to churn again, louder, hungrier, building into a sound none of them had heard before. The owl's voice returned, deeper than ever, shaking the tree itself. Who will survive the gauntlet? The light